Sup, powerful nonsenses.
We're back.
See, I went with the sup this
And
week.
that was a subtle one as well. That was just a.
Was it? It felt forced.
You didn't hit the top line in the old Audible track.
3 years of actor training.
Yeah.
Audible.
I listen to so much Audible now it's literally
It's
in my
just
mind.
in your, you can't get it out of your head.
Exactly.
Yeah, so welcome to episode 131. 130. It's different when you say 131 as opposed to 131. We've done 131 episodes, Jem.
God damn us.
Can you actually freaking believe that?
Oh, I can't believe how consistent we are. And
I know.
How we've been putting out one every week.
I know.
It's craziness.
It's all thanks to you guys. All thanks to you.
Well, we did see we already had 7 listeners today. So it was like, yes,
Yeah.
7 people are listening to us.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Living the dream.
That's early morning, by the way. This isn't like
Yeah.
10 p.m. that we're doing this. This is like early morning, 7 listens. So we were pretty happy with that. Ticking over those listens. Yeah, boy. Anyway, so I am Wayne Ingram.
I'm Cem and Wayne.
See, I did it without Q this week.
Good man.
Thanks. I'm a pro. I'm a professional.
Proper pro.
Proper pro. So we're talking today about the illusion of limited resources.
Which is quite a long-winded title.
It is.
How would you simplify that if you were to simplify that in your mind?
Well, I like it, though. I like it.
I like it. It's just the idea that you think you can't get something,
Right.
but ultimately you can.
Yeah. It's
If you know where to go looking.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's abundance, scarcity, which is always a great subject to talk about.
Yeah, I think as well, this is like really, really important because I think a lot of the time when anybody wants to do anything in their life, it always, the first thing they look at is, have I got enough money to do that?
Right.
Because obviously money is tied to kind of all the things maybe you want to purchase something, maybe you need to rent something, maybe you need to buy something. I don't know what it is like, but first thing you go to is, I haven't got the money to do that. And I think that's usually a massive excuse for why people will literally not do anything. It's because they're waiting about, well, I've got to save up enough money, or I've got to have enough money to support myself before I can do that. And I think a lot of the time that is a massive excuse. So we're going to kind of like break down why you need to kind of get out of that mindset and how actually there could be a lot of the things you need right now available to you, maybe for free even.
Under your very nose.
Under your very nose, which you need to kind of know where to go looking initially to scope them out.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to help you guys with.
Yeah. So you kind of touched on the whole, I haven't got X, I haven't got Y, blah, 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 blah. And I think the most dangerous thing about that is it is a massively downward spiral.
Yeah.
Massively downward spiral. And I think it only ends up becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy because you never invest X to get a result, which means that you then end up not getting the result, which means you don't have as much to put back in, if that makes sense.
Kind of.
Do you get what I'm saying? Let's just pull it in money terms, because I think that's the easiest way to explain
Examples, please.
So, you're trying to start a business, right? You haven't got clients, right? So that's number one. You haven't got money coming in. So you go, I haven't got the money to market myself.
Yeah.
Which is...
Or to build that website I need to build.
Right. So then you kind of you don't market yourself because you say you haven't got the money, but then you don't end up with any clients because you haven't marketed yourself. So then, I mean, this is a very simplistic example. So then you don't make any more money, so then you don't market yourself, so then you don't get any more clients, which means you still don't have any more money. And then it just becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy because you're going, well, I can't get clients because I haven't got money, but I haven't got money because I can't get clients. It actually reminds me of Flight of the Conchords. You know what? I highly recommend Flight of the Conchords. It's about a 2-piece band, and their manager comes to them, and he's doing his day job. He's like a McDonald's sign holder, and the band manager, who isn't a proper band manager, he's got an office job and everything. He comes up to them and he's like, oh, I need you to, I've got this gig for you on Friday. And he's like, oh, well, I can't do the gig. He's like, well, why can't you do the gig? It's like, well, I've got this job. He's like, well, why have you got a job? He's like, well, you haven't got me any gigs. It's like, well, I've got you a gig now. He's like, yeah, but I can't do it now because I've got this job. And so and then it's just this back and forth between them. I highly recommend Flight of the Conchords.
I know I've heard a lot about it.
But yeah, and you end up in that sort of situation where you're just reinforcing the can't as opposed to the can.
That's why I really loved that analogy that Junior used with us, where he was like, you got to just throw your shoes over the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think that when you do that, it kind of like forces you to become resourceful. Like if you're like, oh crap, I'm leaving my job at the end of next month, or I've told this person that I'm going to fulfill this many orders, I do find like your brain will switch on and you'll become like super resourceful and you'll start you'll think, well, it has to happen. Like you say, you get out of that can't mentality and you're like, well, it has to happen now. So how am I going to, you go out your way to do all the research to figure out how to get things for free. And I think even when we were just talking just before we hit record on this episode, I was saying like it's funny we're doing this episode because initially we were like, oh, we can't keep recording at our houses, it's getting too noisy, we're getting interruptions. It'd be so good if we could just have a studio. And we're both like, yeah, but we haven't got the budget to like get a studio yet. It's something that we can't do. And then I was like, oh, and I remembered that the vegan cafe that I get my food from, I was like, oh, there's actually a photography studio next door to that. I was like, I wonder if the lady is like, does she use it every day? It's always sometimes it looks closed. And so I thought maybe I'll just ask her, see what she says. So I got into a conversation with her and she was like, oh yeah, I was telling her what I was doing, like websites and do a bit of marketing. She was like, oh, well, actually my studio is never used on a certain day. Come in and you can use it for free. If maybe you just like manage my website here and then you give it a few tweaks. And it's like, there was something in front of my eyes for so long. There was a studio available next door to where I eat most days, and I literally didn't know about it. And so in my mind, I'd kind of told myself that a studio was too expensive to have, even though I definitely wanted one. But then somehow now we get the studio for free. Basically, I do a few little tweaks here and there to our website. But it's that idea that actually all these things out there that you're saying to yourself that you can't afford, you can't do, is like, oh, you can't start a website. Well, actually, there's free website builders available. Maybe they might put your URL might look a bit funky, but it's free. Or you might get free, like a month free of hosting. Or if you want to kind of, I don't know, there's so many different things. Oh, I want to be a designer, but I can't pay for Photoshop. Well, you can do a 30-day free trial and you can see how you go for 30 days. There's so many little things available nowadays that are out there. Or you can't get customers and you're like, oh, okay, I'll do Facebook ads, it's cheap. There's so many things that people hold back from doing, but the answer's there. But it's just that it might take you a little while to actually find it.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk about just generally abundance and scarcity mindset, because I think that is ultimately at the core of this conversation. If you really break it down, that's the lowest common denominator. So in terms of, I mean, I don't want to get too woo-woo with it, right? But there is such a difference when you start talking and thinking in the positive versus the negative. And if you get yourself in the mindset of like, I've got everything that I need to fulfill what I need to fulfill, you then start looking for opportunities that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. And I think it's so easy to get in the position where you're saying, well, I haven't got it, therefore I can't. And then you just reinforce, as we've been saying. Whereas the difference, the opposite side of the coin being this more positive outlook. And, you know, I don't want to get too woo-woo, and I don't want to be like, oh, the universe. But like, just because you start being more open to the possibilities, it's a cognitive bias is ultimately what it is. And you start seeing the opportunities that you previously dismissed because you weren't looking for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, if we go back to using this studio as an example, before the story I was telling myself is we cannot afford a studio, I got pissed off enough with the idea that we kept getting interrupted and having technical issues, and just it was getting on my nerves so much. I was like, we have to get a studio. And that little change in mind of like, no, we're getting a studio, whatever happens, we need to do it.
Yeah.
That little tweak made me go, oh, there's a studio next to Idan's place, the vegan cafe. And so that was me letting it be a possibility in my mind. And like you say, then suddenly the opportunities start coming available. Like, who knows, maybe I didn't get this place, but then I bump into someone in the street, start chatting, and there's somebody with a studio. Even in my head now, I'm like, actually, I know somebody else who has a studio that I could have probably asked. And it's kind of just having that in your mind that you've got the awareness, and then the little things start coming together. And I also do think in some woo-woo way is that when you're doing something that you really enjoy, which I really love the podcast, I do find that when you need to go to that next level, if, for example, people say, is that actually because you're doing something good and it's going to help other people and you're doing it out of care and love, I do find that like the paths just open up, and I don't know whether that's just because you put more time in the game that you start seeing these opportunities, or you become more entrepreneurial in the way you're thinking. But for me, I do find that when I am doing things for the right reasons and I'm doing it for both myself and other people, I do find that like you just knock into somebody and they start chatting to you and they have the answer or they have the studio space. So yeah, I do think it is a level of woo woo, but also a level of just it's in your consciousness now.
Yeah, well, I think that's the difference. If you take the woo woo out of it, I think it's just because of your conscious place in that you're looking for opportunity as opposed to dismissing opportunity. And so when you have that conversation with that person that has the resources that could really help you, because it's something that you're passionate about, something that you're enjoying, it's much more of a case of you suddenly go, oh, there's an opportunity here, as opposed to, oh, well, there's no opportunity out there, if that makes sense. But also, I think when you're doing something that you really enjoy and that you're really passionate about, I think you just put more conscious thought into it.
Yeah, probably.
And so you automatically get into a place where you're kind of going, okay, well, I've got a challenge. How can I solve that challenge? And so you get a lot more creative with your thinking, because instead of being just in a place of like, oh, I can't solve that problem, you instead get into a position where you're kind of saying, do you know what? There must be a way that I can solve this problem.
Mm-hmm. And plus, you can then see, once you've got that mindset, you can then see other people who are doing that thing and they figured out the way. And then that makes it a possibility in your mind. I do think a lot of it's a bit like the Wayne Dyer, or like change your words, change your life, or change your thoughts, change your life. It's that idea that as soon as you do start putting it into the possibility of happening, it will, the answers just start flowing towards you in some sort of, it is very woo woo way as well. But I'm sure it's just how the brain works. It's like
it's a cognitive bias, and you can kind of look at it from the whole woo woo kind of angle, or you can just look at it from a psychological level. I think if you break it down into logic, it makes total sense. But I think it's sometimes easier to just kind of put it down to woo woo, because then you don't have to actually explain it. That's not to say that, to challenge anyone's belief system or anything like that, but I think that's what it is. I think if you put something to a higher power, you dismiss responsibility. You misplace the responsibility of it, and you go, look, it's out of my control.
It might feel out there, and it came from somewhere, but quietly your brain as a human, you're very creative in your thinking, and we like to evolve. So maybe that's just the brain's doing that just without our attention, direct attention.
But I think putting it to a higher power, whatever that might be, is definitely an empowering thing, because you've taken the responsibility from your own actions away from yourself a little bit more. So you put less pressure on yourself, because it's much more of a kind of, it's kind of that abundance versus scarcity thing, because you're going, well, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So then suddenly you've taken the pressure off, and you're kind of looking for the opportunity.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of, even Junior mentioned, I know we mentioned Junior earlier about like throwing the shoes off the over the fence idea that he said, but also he also says like having that faith. And I think sometimes having faith in the thing is going to happen, like have faith that your project's going to go well, or you're going to start that business. I think it does. It goes back to the abundance again, doesn't it? The same sort of falls under the faith category.
Oh, definitely. So let's take a quick break.
Yes.
Thank our sponsor.
Yes.
And we'll be back in a jiffy. So we thought we'd just take a few seconds just to say thank you to our sponsor, the University of Northampton. Huge thank you to them for supporting the show. So why should you check them out? Well, first of all, we're alumni. We went there, so everything that we kind of deliver to you, it kind of comes from them in a way. But also, they're not just about getting a degree. The thing we love about Northampton Uni, from experience, is the fact that you come out of your course with your degree, but also there's so many options on the table. They understand that it's not just about going out and getting a job anymore. It's also about the possibility of setting up your own business and becoming an entrepreneur. And to top that off, it's not just about setting up a business, it's about setting up a social enterprise. That's their specialist area. So if you're thinking of setting up a business, it can also be one that's doing good to the world and delivering social impact. So check them out, northampton.ac.uk, and huge thank you to them for supporting the show. Welcome back.
Hello.
So we're talking about the illusion of limited resources.
Yes.
And during the break, we had a brief discussion, so I'm just going to dive straight in there.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So one of the things that I think people still underestimate now, and I see it in even millennials. I think they take it for granted, right? We have got so many resources at our disposal, in terms of connections, in terms of knowledge, in terms of even just tools and things on an electronic basis because of the interwebs. Yeah, me being all hip calling it interwebs. Yeah,
I've never heard anybody hip say that.
that's because I'm a trendsetter, mate.
Okay.
But yeah, so and I think there's so much technology out there that can now help in terms of, like, as we talk about, in terms of like finding clients, right? You look at Gary V's thing of going through Twitter and making connections with people, and you've got this hive mind of people that have unbelievable resources available to them. But I think it's so easy and I kind of do it with myself with my acting career. I'm kind of like, okay, I've got this problem to solve. How can I do it? But I'm always going, well, okay, that's great for that industry, but it doesn't really work for my industry. And so then you have to get really, really creative around how to make things work for that specific problem. And I think quite often the resources are there anyway. It's one example I find is that when I've got a problem in terms of when I'm organising myself, it's so easy for me to be like, oh, if only I could create this thing that would do this. And I could just hop on Google and usually I can find exactly what it is that I'm looking for in some form.
It's already been created.
It's already been created, exactly. And I think it's so important just to... the first place I would go if I had a problem that I needed facing is Google.
I was just thinking in my head, like, where do you think this lack of like creative thinking comes in? Because obviously a lot of people just feel stumped at the first hurdle, rather than, like, I think, I'm not going to be big-headed or anything, but I think we're quite creative in the sense that we will think about the problem, and then we will, after all this experience doing what we're doing, we will know there's an answer out there somewhere. But a lot of people tend to fall into that category of, okay, I want to do this, that's it, game over, stop where I am.
You know what? That's a really good question.
Because it's our natural human sort of instinct initially to be quite entrepreneurial and creative and kind of put two and two things together, or to question, or to kind of be super resourceful or problem solving. But I find that maybe a lot of people kind of hold back, or they don't know how to be, or they don't know where to look. It's kind of funny when you do speak to like young people who want to start businesses or anything, and then you just say, oh, haven't you looked at, or they want to talk, they want to connect with someone, say, oh, we've tried LinkedIn, and they're like, oh no, what's LinkedIn? And you're just like, it was there, it's there, but it's like they don't do that quick Google search to go answer the problem sometimes.
I wonder if it's a perceived constraint on time that I think is the issue. Because I think me and you, although not so much you at the moment, but me and you do have a lot of time on our hands to ponder things.
The ponderings.
The ponderings. And I think when you're, again, it comes back to that thing that when you're, like we talked about in the last episode, when you're passionate about something, you'll put more energy into it. And I think the same thing happens here. When you've got a problem that's in the way of something that you're passionate about, you're going to put the time into thinking about it. Like, I spend a lot of time trying to work out how I can leverage whatever's on the internet and all the tools that are out there to further my career and make it a difference maker between me and the rest of the actors that are out there. And I think that's probably got a lot to do with it. I think there is a mindset. Like, one of the biggest illusions of lack of resources is time. There are so many people that haven't got time. I had a conversation with somebody a couple of weeks ago. They were like, oh, I think I might want to go freelance because I'm really good at what I do, and I do like the company that I work for, but I think I could make more money and achieve more doing it on my own. And I said, well, why don't you? Well, I haven't got the time. I'm like, you have got the time. They're like, no, I haven't. I'm like, okay, what hours do you work? This, that, and the other. And she's like, well, I work Monday to Friday, blah, blah, blah. And I went, okay, well, what about the weekend? Oh, I'm really tired at the weekend. I'm like, yeah, but if you commit to yourself just a couple of hours every weekend, like we say in our free ebook, How to Make Time for Your Side Hustle, if you just commit to yourself to put in a couple of hours here and there every week, or whatever fits in with your schedule. And I think it's so easy just to kind of get bogged down with I haven't got the time to do it. And I think everybody's got the same 24 hours in the day. And I think it's about leveraging the resources that you've got to try and solve a problem. And I think it's so easy just to kind of... I just think people take it for granted that all of that stuff's out there. Yeah. I know I'm kind of like jumping around trying to answer your question because I'm not sure what the answer is myself, but I think a lot of it's got to do with the illusion of time.
I think that is one good point. I think also that I wonder how much of like what Seth Godin says as well, this idea that education in some ways has stopped you to do the bit of the extra questioning. Like you don't... I don't know though, I guess because I found that uni made me do more of the questioning than my, say, I don't know, sixth form or schooling, because then you actually have to go into it to like research like essays and stuff. Maybe that's the next level of education, I guess, higher than that PhD, where you literally dive even deeper. But I do find that I think sometimes people just don't know how to do that sort of research or where to start looking.
But I think as well there's also an aspect of it where I'm actually really enjoying this little segue conversation that we've gone down, but I think a lot of it as well is there's a lot of this aspect of not actually looking for a solution to a problem. I think there's a lot of kind of, well, that's just how it is that goes on as well.
Yeah, no, totally.
And I think one of the things that I've always done, and I think you're the same, is there's always been surely there's got to be a better way. Or surely there's got to be an easier way or a less time-consuming way of doing something. And I think it's always trying to evolve your process, evolve your situation, and not kind of getting to the point where you kind of go, yeah, that'll do. And it's always kind of going, can I leverage time? Can I leverage resources to make things more efficient? And I think there's a certain type of individual that does that, and then there are other people that don't. But I think the same kind of rules apply when you're thinking about your resources. I think it's again, a lot of people, I think, they go, well, I haven't got it, so I can't do it. And again, it's about kind of opening yourself up to... goes back to what the whole episode is really about, which is just kind of just opening yourself up to analysing situations and kind of going, is there a better, more effective way of doing it?
Or people are just straight up lazy and they just actually don't want to do the work, because that is the hard part. And actually just saying to yourself, you know what, I can't do it, I haven't got the cash, is your easy way of, okay, that's why I'm stuck in the job I hate. Right.
Or is it lazy, or is it fear?
Or is it both?
Or both.
Yeah.
I was actually watching I tweeted out yesterday, because actually I watched I think he must have caught me at a good time. I just randomly watched a Gary V YouTube video, which was... it's called A Plea to Do.
Oh yeah, I watched that one. That was really good, actually.
And it was so passionate. Like, I genuinely got a little bit emotional watching it, because he was just going... Honestly, I've got to link it up in the show notes, because I was like proper lump in my throat, because it was kind of like really giving me some home truths. But also it was so passionate the way he was saying, like, okay, it's great that you want to educate yourself. It's great that you want to, make sure that you're doing it right and everything. But... like, how many times do you need to listen to my shit? How many times do you need to read these books? Like, it's great and everything that you're educating yourself, but please stop doing it and just get out there and do it. You have what you need to do it, so just do it. And then he's saying, like, I've made all the money I need to make. If I don't make another dollar for the rest of my life, I'm fine. I'm happy. I don't want you here. I don't want you listening to my shit. I want you just to go out there and do it. And I was like... oh my god.
Well, I guess it's kind of the same like people who listen to the podcast. You listen to the podcast because you know there's something you want to be doing, but maybe you're just holding off. And it's kind of every time we put one out, we're just hoping that we're pushing you a little bit closer to just going for that thing you want to be going for, really. Yeah, but definitely. I watched that the other day and I was like, damn, he's like fired up. But it's good also because I find that if you are somebody who is a do and you listen to that, it's motivating. You're like, yeah, you know what? Because I was that guy reading all the books, listening to all the podcasts, and now I feel like I've fallen into that kind of more doing category now. Yeah, and it does feel empowering. But I know he knows that most people, the 90% or 95%, are falling into that category where you're just a consumer and you've never kind of switched it on to, you know what? Let's do this. And I do think that a lot of the time it is this idea that you think you haven't got enough stuff, or you haven't learned enough, or you haven't got enough money, or you haven't got the time. It's always the excuses ultimately, and
Yeah.
I do think that with the internet, I was going to say interweb actually. Then
Yes,
you've
trendsetter.
you
Yes,
have actually created a trend.
I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't.
I
but...
so nearly said interweb. But yeah, but I think knowing that like we have this resource available to us, like there is no excuses at all nowadays, at all. And again, another thing that like Gary Vee says when you're talking about like time, like think about your age. I love when he says about like you could fuck up for 3 years and still be young.
Yeah, I watched that one yesterday as well, where it's basically this video where he's going. Basically, the first 30 seconds is just clips of him going, "How old are you? How old are you? How old is she? How old are you? How old are you?
Yeah.
You're how old?" And then where he just goes, "Yeah, well, you could go." He's like, "You're young. You could go for like 10 years, hit 30, and done everything wrong, and just completely fucked it all up, and you'd still be young.
Yeah, you're still.
And
be
you've
young.
still got time." And I think it's so true. It's like if you really want to do it, just go hell for leather. Use every resource you've got, everything. And I think that's the thing as well. If you're in a position where you're kind of going, "I haven't got what I need," it's kind of like just give it everything you've got anyway.
Yeah, and I think at that moment you need to kind of get rid of your like. Or what's the word? To have humility.
Yeah.
To have humility and be a cheeky little bastard sometimes and just ask, go out there and just go for it. Like sometimes you'll surprise yourself about all the things that you thought that you could never get, and then someone will give it to for free because you've suddenly gone in there. You were bold enough to say, "I need this. Could you help me? Can I borrow your camera? Can I use your studio? Can you help me build me a website? Can I do something in return for you doing this other favour for me?" I think it takes a level of ballsiness to actually be super resourceful.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a good place to wrap up. I think we could go for more, but I think that's just a really good place to wrap up.
I think as well, but at this point, we'll just have to say to people, go watch those videos. Like, we'll link to both of those two videos. And I think that kind of like, after you watch those, kind of sum it up. But I do think that you have everything you need available to you. Yes, it might come a little bit of money, but maybe you can negotiate here and there, and you'll find a way. If you want to do it, you will find a way.
And I talk about him a lot because he hits home for me. But actually, if this is genuinely a problem for you, and you're constantly finding yourself in a place of I can't do it, I don't have this, I don't have that, just subscribe to Gary Vaynerchuk, because that is most of his MO, is him just going, well, you do have what you need. This is what you need for that situation. Like, watch his Ask Gary Vee stuff. He's now got a search engine, actually, where you can go and you can put in a subject matter, and it will, all of his episodes are transcribed. So if you have a particular industry, just type your industry into that search engine. I think it's search.garyvee.com, I think. And see what he says about your particular industry, because most often he'll go, well, look, you have everything you need. Go do this, go do that, and go do that. And just be patient and watch it grow. And so just if this is an issue for you, check out Gary Vaynerchuk and really like absorb his stuff, because it's really what he talks about.
Basically what we're saying is stop listening to us and go check out Gary Vee.
Well, no, don't stop listening to us. But I mean, listen to both, right?
Why not?
Why not? Cool. So I think that's a really good place to wrap up. So if you have anything you want to say on the matter, please leave a comment. We'd love to chat to you.
Or tell us what you're struggling with, or what you think you don't have enough.
Do you know what? That bit, because I tell you, let's do that. So let's get people to comment either on YouTube, Facebook, or on the blog post. What is it that you think you don't have, that you need to have? And let's try and get a conversation going. Let's get all of the listeners, let's try and get people commenting and just show some support. And because it's so easy to kind of go, I don't have, but somebody from the outside can go, well, have you thought this? Have you thought of that? Have you thought of that?
And we will answer you back personally.
Yeah. So let's try and get a conversation going, because I really want a conversation going with you, because there's a load of you listening. Loads of you listening, so let's get that conversation going. So leave a comment, hit subscribe if you're on YouTube or on iTunes, and if you are on iTunes, leave us a cheeky review. 5 stars or more would be greatly appreciated. So that's it. So thanks very much, guys, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.